Hey, it's Paul here with Living Off Grid, coming at you from somewhere in the woods of Georgia in the southeastern United States. I'm here building my home off grid. I'm on year 2, so been at this for a little over a year now, and it's been a wonderful but very challenging journey because I'm here building my home from scratch by myself. So the purpose of this video is to kind of go through a little list here that I put together because I thought it'd be fun to share some of the reasons why, or the top 10 reasons why I chose to go with a shed conversion instead of a different type of living structure. I did some comparisons between different living structures, different like traditional stick builds to barn dominiums to modular homes to yurts to geodomes. I really researched a lot and kind of boiled down to what do I really want to do and why do I want to do it, and then ultimately why I went this route. All right, so number 1. Now, because of my work schedule, I own a couple of businesses, and for some of those I travel from time to time, and sometimes my traveling can come up kind of spontaneous. Plus, I'm a little bit of a free bird. I like to just, when I want to go, I just want to go. I don't like to plan out everything perfectly to the detail all the time. I like the idea of having some things just kind of go with it. So the reason I ended up going with the shed conversion, or reason number 1, is that I had a structure that was already dried in. Because when I do travel, especially for work, I like to try to kind of schedule as much of my traveling in at one time as I can. So when I travel, especially for work, I'm usually gone for about a month. And I like the idea that if I had to leave in the middle of the build out, then at least everything is dried in and I don't have to worry about, when it rains and stuff, that, things on the inside are getting messed up and getting all wet and sitting there for a month. So I like the idea of having a structure already dried in, ready to go, didn't have to worry about it whether I was here on the property or not. Number 2 is the cost effectiveness. This ended up being the cheapest route. I looked into some traditional stick builds, modular homes, barn dominiums. Those were, I just don't want to spend the money on that. And then I did look at some alternatives. I looked at yurts, I looked at geodomes, I looked at shipping container homes, and I didn't want something that was going to be, taking a super long time, so I kind of X'd out the shipping container. And then I ended up boiling it down between the yurt and the shed conversion, and the price of the shed conversion just really beat out the yurt. This is a custom build shed. I have doors all the way around it. I beefed up the floor. So I did some extra updates, and when I priced out how I wanted the yurt to be built out, it was like 15 to 20 grand more than what the shed conversion was. So I'm like, I'm just going to do the shed, because even on the yurt, that was before the cost of building the platform and then everything I'd have to do for the build out on the inside. So this for me was a far more cost effective route to go. The third reason for the shed conversion, now that I was boiling it down between the shed and a yurt, was the more solid construction of it. I do live in an area, pretty much anywhere can get a tornado, but I do live in an area where we can be affected by hurricanes, and especially as they're passing through, and we will get tropical storms. And I like the idea of having more solid walls and a metal roof, because if we do get those high winds, or when we get those high winds, if there is debris that ends up flying, I feel I'm a little bit more protected, encapsulated by something more solid than a yurt, than basically a tent. And, tree branches and all that, yes, they can easily, obviously, go through windows, but they can easily go through tents and canvas and that type of stuff. So I like the idea of having a more solid construction, just for if or when those types of weather events happen, because they're going to happen at some point, at least here where I am, they will happen. The fourth reason is the ease of building it out. You know, everything's already rectangular, it's square, it's done. The construction was pretty good. You know, there might have been a little shifting in the building during transport. You know, there were a couple things that was a little off with the doors, but I don't think that was at all the builders. That was just transportation and getting it set up. You know, that's a lot of stress on a building. It was bouncing up and down the road and going on to truck beds and getting off of truck beds and moving and stuff. The build out is just super easy. It's just like any traditional home that you would do. You know, if you're running wires for electric, you run your wires, you put your insulation in, and then you put your board up, whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're doing paneling, drywall, plywood. It's very, very straightforward and easy to build out the inside of these. Now, being that my structure is a 12-foot by 30-foot, so the inside is roughly about 300 square feet. It's actually about 305 square feet, 306 square feet. But it's not a whole lot of space, so it wasn't too much to build out the inside. Now, the cost effectiveness, would it have been cheaper if I would have just built it myself? Yes, but because of my traveling and time, it wasn't going to be that much cheaper. So saving like $1,000 or $1,500 on materials for me and the way my life is, I didn't really see that as a big enough savings to build it myself, which would have taken a lot more time because they got a team building this. They got like 2-3 people building this, you know, in their warehouse. I would have been out here in the elements having to build everything myself from scratch. And yes, I do have the skills to do that, but I didn't really, especially last year when I was doing this, I had to travel a lot and I did not have the time to get this thing dried in and all that in time for the storms that were coming. Number 5 is the portability of these buildings. I like the idea that in the future, if I want to build a more traditional permanent home right here in this spot, I can move this thing, right? This thing can be moved anywhere on the property. So I do like the idea of having a not permanent structure, at least for the time being, just for that reason alone, because I never know what the future brings. You know, I can change my mind just like anybody else. And you never know. So I like having my options open. That kind of corresponds with the 6th reason, which is the ease of repairs. And I'm not talking about repairing windows or doors or, you know, holes in the wall. That's the same no matter what you're doing. But when the time comes that I have to do some foundation repairs, because that time will come, it's not a permanent foundation, but even permanent foundations, I've been in homes. Look, you got to repair crawl spaces. You got to fix basements sometimes. You got to fix the floor joists sometimes. It just comes with the territory of home ownership sometimes. And my building is small enough, again, being a 12-foot by 30-foot, that I can get underneath it with a car jack, just undo the straps on my earth anchors, get a car jack underneath there, and just lift it up. And then I can get underneath there and do whatever work I got to do. Yeah, tedious, but a lot easier than having to bust through concrete and dealing with all that stuff. So a little bit of future thinking on that part. So number 7, this isn't necessarily exclusive to a shed conversion. This is just kind of the tinier, smaller square footage living. Because you could go with a much bigger shed. I mean, they make these things all the way up to 50, 60 feet long, up to like 16 feet wide. I mean, you can get, you know, pretty big, which then I would probably definitely have concrete footers and all that put in to the ground, you know, a more solid foundation if you're going that size. But for my size, just a 12-foot by 30-foot, I like the idea of some smaller living. You know, I don't want to accumulate just a whole bunch of stuff. And when I am shopping for my interior decorating, which I'm not really focusing on right now, I'm focusing on the structural build stuff. I have my reasons for that. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video. Planning your off-grid life. Maybe I'll make that video. If you're interested in that video, let me know down in the comments, and I'll make that video on how I planned this whole thing out. But yeah, I don't want to just be having space that I just have to fill, and then I'm blowing money on stuff that I just don't need and don't really want. You know, it eliminates out the impulse buys, you know, having that smaller square footage. Now, number 8, the company that I went with for my shed. This is actually a big one, and this was one of the reasons why I chose to go this route. And I ended up going with a company called Dirksen Portable Buildings. And Dirksen already knows that a large portion of their clientele purchases these to live in them, not just use them as storage sheds. So they do build them to a higher standard and a more beefiness than most of the other shed companies that are out there that I looked around and compared them with. The loft style is way better. I do have a barn style with the gamble roof, and the lofts are important because the lofts are in there because it will prevent twisting in the building during high winds. And Dirksen offers a lot of customizations. So when I was talking to them about building my building, I was able to do custom size lofts, which when I ordered it, I actually ordered I ordered a 6-foot loft and an 8-foot loft, but when they did it, I ended up getting 2 12-foot lofts, which worked in my favor because I was able to customize my lofts. I cut them down, and I had enough 2x6s left over that I was able to double up all of the joists because they build their lofts with 2x6 joists, not 2x4 joists, which most shed companies do. Now, the other thing with Dirksen is maybe I'll do I'm going to do a more deep dive kind of tour of the cabin when I get to it. And I'll show you all the pros and cons of my building. But I like that when they build their lofts, they build them on top of the top plates of the walls. That makes sense to me. A lot of these shed places are taking 2x4 lofts and they're just toenailing them into the wall studs. They're just there to prevent twisting. You're not going to be storing much up there. You're absolutely not going to be sleeping up there if you wanted to. The other upgrades for Dirksen, you can beef up the floor. I went with the floor joists. Instead of doing 16 inches on center, I beefed it up to 12 inches on center, and I upgraded to the thicker, more beefier subflooring option that they have. Because I knew I was going to have my wood-burning stove in there. My wood-burning stove is not a real heavy wood-burning stove. It's about 250, 275 pounds. So it's not a super heavy one. But just because it is that piece of dead weight right there, dead load, I wanted to beef up the floor just a little bit more. Plus, again, it leaves more options for what I want to do with it in the future. Also, the pricing for the doors, because I've got doors all the way around on all 4 walls, it wasn't bad at all for these little upgrades. It did not push the price of the shed up much at all. And then the company I went through to order the shed had free shipping anyway, so that was nice. That was a big saver right there. Which the company that I liked for the yurts did not offer free shipping, and I would have had to pay a lot to get it shipped all the way across the country. So again, for my area and where I'm at and what I want, a lot of reasons really why this won. So Dirksen Portable Buildings. I know they don't service all areas in the United States, but in my area they do. And I'm very, very happy with their product. So number 9, just going with a loft style shed. Just for that extra storage, I like that. Originally, I was planning on sleeping on the larger loft, but I'm not. I'm just sleeping down in the on the floor, like on the main level. But I got all this storage space now, where all that storage is out of the way. It's up. I didn't want to do a shed that did not have the lofts because I knew I wanted the storage space up on top, because it's a lot of storage space and it's pretty nice when you're living tiny. But I'm not really living tiny. I'm living smaller because, as you guys know, I am building my kitchen right now, and that is a 12 by 24 kitchen. So That's a little bit more square footage that's being added to it. Now, last reason, number 10. This was a big one for me, and it's being more connected to nature. Now, when I set sail to come here to live off-grid, my envision was that I was going to be living symbiotically with nature. I like feeling the cold. I don't like feeling the cold. I actually hate the cold. I'm a hot summer person. My favorite month here in Georgia is July. It's the hottest month. It's the most humid month. I do not have air conditioning. I just open the windows and open the doors and get a beautiful cross breeze, which actually cools it down quite a bit. But I still want to feel and be part of nature. So I appreciate the colder winters. Yes, it does not get as cold here as when I was living up north. But, you know, when it's down in the 20s at night, it can get pretty cold when you're not letting the wood burn, your wood stove burn all night long. And you wake up and inside of your cabin is 40 degrees or 38 degrees. It's pretty freaking cold, But I like listening to the rain. I like that I can hear nature outside all day and all night long. I can hear the insects in the summer. I hear the birds first thing in the morning or when they're doing their evening songs. I can hear the coyotes singing and the owls hooting. And I can hear the deer when they're trying to come in and walk around and get to some of my fruit trees and stuff. So I just like having that closeness to nature. That was really the envision, is basically feeling like I'm living outside. And when I have all of the walls open and the windows open, it's basically like I'm just underneath like a pergola canopy. And in the spring, summer, and fall, or the nice days and nights in the winter, man, is it nice when it's raining outside and you have everything open and you got that breeze coming through. It's sweet. So having that closeness to nature, that's reason number 10, and it is the best reason. And I know, like a yurt, when I was living in my bell tent here, obviously it was the same thing. I can hear everything, and I really liked that. And in a yurt, it would be the exact same. You can hear everything around you. And I didn't want to lose that effect. I really liked the idea of a yurt. And actually, I really liked the idea of the geodome. I didn't like the, I just don't like the materials, right? Like, they're good, strong, solid structures as far as like the structural integrity. I just didn't like the, the polyester canvas walls and stuff like that, like I said, because if there is a big storm that comes in, there are high winds and there is debris, I feel a bit more safe in a more solid structure. At least it's got to get through that plywood. It's got to get through that metal roof, plus the roof sheeting and all the insulation and all that stuff before it can get to me. And I just like that idea of that type of security a little bit more. So that's it. That's my 10 reasons why I chose to go with a shed conversion above all other alternative living housings and traditional housings and all that stuff. Now, there are far more reasons than this, little things here and there, but these are the top 10. And again, if you want me to do that video where I talk about my planning on this lifestyle of living off grid, I did not just purchase a property and impulsively, I'm going to go off grid. I've been planning this since I was 15 years old. But if you'd like to hear more on that and my planning, because that might help fast track some people that are in the process of their planning and looking for property and all that stuff, I'd be happy to make that video. Just let me know down in the comments, thumbs up this video, and I'll go ahead and make that one coming up very soon. All right. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm going to get back to it. I'm just enjoying today. I'm just relaxing. It's mid-60s out today. It's beautiful weather today. I'm taking a day off from building, and I'm just chilling and just having a good day. All right. I'll talk to you or see you soon.